Will you join me in 3 ohms? Now in a gathering like this, it's really no longer sufficient to just talk about it. Now we have to become it. So the transmission that you come to receive is in truth not a conceptual one. What I know, I will share with you. But what I am, you must take. And for you to take what is here, you have to acknowledge who you are. For if you come with the certainty that you already know, and that what you have is enough, then though you will hear the words, you will not receive the transmission. If we transported this evening to a cave in the Himalayas that you had all spent months getting to, and you entered the cave after much purification, and sat before me, you would be ready to receive a transmission. Now it is the question of whether in this structure in Lawrence, Kansas, convenient to your home, in the course of an evening, whether the same space can be created. For by the time you got to the Himalayan cave, you would recognize that what you are seeking in a transmission has very little to do with time and space. It has very little to do with your body, with your personality. It was only when Don Juan had destroyed Castanada's personal history that the transmission could occur. But when you sit in an auditorium and there is a speaker, you tune in one set of receiving devices. Your ears, your eyes, and your conceptual, analytic mind. But to receive this transmission requires much more than the mind. It requires a desire in you. A desire in you to use this birth in order to become who you in truth are. It requires the desire that you become free of the kinds of clinging and attachments that keep distorting and narrowing your vision. It requires that you truly desire to know what you are doing here, what your function is on earth. And in truth to be saying, I want more than the reality that is available to me through my senses and through my thinking mind. It requires that you take those moments every one of you have had in your life when you have been in tune with the Tao, with the harmony of the universe, with the flow, when for a moment you set aside your separateness, your self-consciousness, and you have become part of the process in the same way as a tree or a brook or wheat is part of the process. That you take those moments that all of you have had and you bring them into the foreground at this moment and make them figure so that they stand out, and put the rest of the forms of your life into ground. I was raised by a Jewish middle-class woman, my mother, who was very busy being just that, very concerned with propriety and the appropriate food and way to raise the children. And I reacted as a appropriately neurotic Jewish son. And then my mother died, and then I met my guru, And Maharaji was talking about my mother, and he said, you know, she's a great saint. And at that moment that he said that, my entire perception of her shifted. And I saw the few moments when she and I had met in the spirit as spiritual entities. And suddenly the whole way in which we had interacted as mother and son in this particular round fell into the background. A reversal. Your daily life is full of this and that. It's full of pulls and pushes, full of clingings of mind. You are literally at the mercy of your senses and your thoughts. And those senses and thoughts just keep recreating your mold or model or view of the reality. Keeps reassuring you you've got it all pegged. That's just the way it is. But every one of you had a moment, had many moments when you broke through, as if you stuck your nose through the veil and you saw that wasn't who you were at all. But then, because most of you had no context in which to put it, you pulled back out of fear, and reassured yourself that the world was the way it was, and you referred to those experiences as hallucinations. I went crazy. It was far out. As something discontinuous with your daily life. That a statistic that was reported that I've referred to in many lectures, that was in the New York Times magazine section, about mysticism in America, that reported that 2/5 of the population of the United States, is that 40-odd million people, had had a transcendent mystic experience. Of a sampling of those 2/5, 80% said, yes, it was the most profound experience of my life, and I never want to have another one. Because it upset the apple cart. It blew their scene apart. But what it touched and what you have touched, what they touched and what you have touched, is something that you can't quite push back under the rug. It keeps pulling on you. And as you get further on with this incredible journey, there are many times when you wished it had never happened. But the problem with all of you is that once the door is opened, you can't quite close it again. And all of you know too much. You're trapped. You don't even know what you're trapped in. But otherwise, what would you be doing here? I mean, this would have no relevance to you. There'd be no reality in this. This would not be part of your reality. This is football weekend, isn't it? You could be where the action is. No, there's been some seed planted in you that's making you do this weird thing. I mean, there's no status in coming here. Who cares? Nobody's counting. And that seed ultimately is going to do nothing less than totally turn your life around. You may drag your feet for a day, for a year, for a lifetime, for a few lifetimes, but you're hooked. How many of you understand what I'm talking about? Okay, that's a sufficient number. So what is required here, besides the desire to open, to know, to find out, to become, besides the recognition of that seed that's been planted, what's also required for this journey is an open heart. That's a stinker. That's not so easy to do. Sit now, sit straight, and breathe in and out of your heart 5 times deeply. And each time you take a breath, I'll tell you what to do before you do it. Each time you take a breath in, just make believe. We'll just make believe now. Make believe this room was actually absolutely loaded with some substance. Okay? A substance. It's a very fine mist. Okay? You can't see it. You just have to trust me because I'm up here and I'm telling you. Okay? We're just making believe now. There's this very fine mist. Okay? We'll call it a golden mist. What do you say? Okay? It's a golden mist, and it just permeates this whole place. And since you're going to give me poetic license to be as Meshuggah as I want, let us further imagine that there really are beings on other planes of existence. Okay? And that they have been called here because of the purity of our seeking. Remember when Christ said, where 2 are gathered, and, that one? Say there are some beings here that are just waiting to fill you, to feed you, to bless you, to give it to you, if you would but acknowledge it and allow it. So let's say there's a mist surrounding you, and there are beings here. And every breath you take in, you draw in this mist by focusing on it. Fill your whole body with it. Start with the heart, though. Focus on the heart, and then let it go through your body. And then when you breathe out, let's clear out all of the stuff in you that keeps you from having the transmission at this moment. All of the, well, I don't know about that. That one, see? Or what is he, some kind of a nut? That one, All of the anger that you've got left over from what happened earlier today. the frustration because you're not making it enough, or making it with the wrong person, or you're flunking, or your dope supply ran out, or whatever, who knows. Frustration, anger, doubt. All that heavy stuff that keeps you from being, once again, simple and open and almost naive in your openness to the universe. All of your sophistication, you can breathe that out too. You can have it back as you leave. Right? So take in a deep breath, breathe in the mist, really close your eyes and really do it. As deep as you can possibly do it. Slow, deep breath. And when you breathe out all the heaviness, the tensions, all the stuff you've collected in your body and your mind, all the doubt, all the ill will, just let it out. Just breathe it out again, and then take another breath from this. Just keep filling yourself, and do it through the heart, so the heart keeps opening. Okay? 5 deep breaths. Go ahead. You can make as much noise as you need to make to do that. Even if you're a photographer, you got to do it too. Okay? No professionals now. Pull in that mist, pull in that light, as if you were pulling in a very pure energy and filling your body. And then breathe out all the heaviness and all the doubt, all the confusion, all the anger. Take one special breath for all the unworthiness and self-pity that you all have. And then stay with your eyes closed when you finish the 5 breaths. Now imagine that you are a being who was born into this body that you're in at this moment. Imagine that you're sitting in your heart and look around at your environment, which is your body, this body. Experience the body now as surrounding you rather than you. Look up to that huge head above you, which is the control center, which is full of the structure of your ego, of who you think you are. Look around at all the muscles and the nerves, all the organs of the body. See it as a very exquisite temple, as an edifice, as an extraordinarily intricate device. Why, your brain alone, if we tried to create a computer like it, would cover the face of the earth. One brain. And you sit, you, this essence, this being, you sit right in the middle of your chest. Where did you come from, and what are you doing here? What are you doing in this edifice, which has its life unfolding? who you are in truth was formed out of that mist. Who you are in truth came originally from the substance. Though the word will upset many of you, you came from the substance of God. And you have entered into these edifices time and time and time again. And each time you've entered into an edifice at the time of birth, the veil has descended once again, and you identified totally with the structure itself, and you thought, I am this body, I am man, I am woman, I am of this religion, of this nationality, of this color, of this background. And even though many of you are Christians, the Father Christ referred to as being not of this earth was not real for you. For in the illusion, your Father was of this earth. And time again, you've been born into a body just like this one. And certain work has happened in the course of a lifetime. And then you died again and again and again. And sometimes when you died, in the old days, I mean, you want to know how long you've been doing this? I mean, you're not Johnny-come-latelys. You wouldn't be in this room if you were. I don't care how young you are chronologically in this life, that isn't it, or how old. Buddha describes an image, a mountain, 1 mile, it's actually 6 miles by 6 miles by 6 miles. And every 100 years, a bird flies over that mountain carrying a silk scarf in its beak, and it runs the scarf over the mountain. In the length of time it would take that scarf to wear away that mountain. That's how long you've been doing this. Birth, life, death. Birth, life, death. And here you are now in another one. The only difference is that in this one, you are beginning to awaken out of the illusion in the middle of the birth, rather than after the moment of death. Do you know how many rounds you had to go through to get to this point? And while the edifice, your mind and your body desires, it desires food, it desires sex, it desires security, it desires gratification of its senses. You know what you want? what you want, you that's sitting inside, you want to be part of. The harmony, the mist, the flow, the living spirit. To put it in Christian terms, your soul wishes to return from whence it came. And you keep approximating in life all the techniques you can to experience something that's like it, almost. Every orgasm you have is a transcendent moment. Every time you lose yourself in beauty or in music or in food, as you take the first gulp of the perfect milkshake, as you ride your motorcycle on a fall sunny day, as you play with your baby and get lost in the beauty of that child. But the problem is that all of those last only for a moment. Because they're in time and space. And what your soul is yearning for is not a momentary experience. You're not interested in just getting high again. You're interested in becoming. You are interested in not loving, but being love. You are interested not in just seeing truth, but in being truth. Not in just enjoying beauty, but in being beauty. Where your every act, the movement of your hand, the conversation, your breath, is always in the flow of things. That you are not angular and separate and feeling cut off and trying desperately to love and to grab and to collect and to possess, because there is no need to possess, because you are part of it all. And the desire of that soul is not just to know that, but to be that. Not just to know the universe, but to be the universe. Not just to know God, here's the heresy, but to be God. That's heavy. I mean, you with all your unworthiness, what a grandiose desire for that soul. And as you look around at yourself and all the other beings around you, you see that to the extent that they identified with their bodies and their personalities, they kept trying to grab at that perfect balance and harmony and flow, and they grabbed it for a moment and then lost it again. That is the suffering that the Buddha talks about in his Four Noble Truths. That is what Christ talks about when he says, "Lay not up your treasures where moth and rust doth corrupt, and thieves break in." For who you are is not who you think you are. You are so brilliant, radiant, luminous, divine, that you can't stand to even think of it, because it's too inconsistent with who you think you are. But you sit down and meditate and quiet your mind and open your heart and sit in stillness, and slowly your being will become figure and the edifice will become background, and you will begin to recognize the truth of your existence. And what I look at when I look at other people are souls screaming to be free. For the eyes are indeed the windows of the soul. To look into another person's eyes, what you see looking back is another being just like yourself, saying, "I'm in here. How do I get out? Why am I separate from you?" And sometimes we try to make love with each other's bodies, hoping to overcome that separateness. But the attachment to the illusion keeps casting us back into the separation. At this moment, there is a silence, a space. Your thinking mind keeps you separate from being immersed in that space. If you are simple enough to be without thought, where the thoughts are going by like clouds in the sky, and you are sitting within, quietly, serenely, peacefully, presently, not denying your senses, not denying your mind, but not clinging to them, then you are sharing this space. But what trust you would have to stop judging, orienting, analyzing. The trust is nothing short of surrender. The surrender of your separateness. Not that you won't still have it, but it won't be your master. You have all read by now of enough psychic powers, of enough miracles, of enough awesome phenomena that human beings can perform. All of that lies within every individual gathered here in this gathering. All of it. Every one of the great saints, be it a Buddha or a Moses or a Ramana Maharshi or a Ramakrishna or St. Paul, St. Teresa, all of them are just like you. The only difference is they wanted it more, because their soul was crying to get out of prison, and that became their reality rather than their fantasy.